Привет всем, с вами я, Janey, и это How Janey Learned Russian, and you can too. So now we are officially done with all of the instructional part of Genitive Case, and now we start reviewing everything we've learned. And you know me, I love to have a great time, a great hang with my imaginary Russian friends. So that's what we are doing today. Please join with me and or just listen in and watch me make a fool of myself. It's totally fine. That's what I'm here for. That is why I have this channel. So here I am with I believe it's 4 or 5 friends, and we make sure to have a good time. We talk about all sorts of stuff. Yes, it's 5 friends. They left Lenin out of this. This was after his stroke, and so he couldn't actually come and dance with us, unfortunately, in that picture. But anyway, so again, just a reminder that this is all based on my textbook called Russian Cases Made Slightly Less Scary because of my ridiculous sense of humor and all of the Soviet propaganda and just all the language nerdery that you know and love on this channel. I think Russian grammar is like the most magical thing in the whole world, and I could talk about it all day, but then I wouldn't have any friends, and that's where my channel comes in. So I also do group classes, and we all nerd out together over there in those classes. All of this information is down in the description that's available over on Patreon. So интересный кусочек информации дня, кого в русской истории и культуре надо знать, да? И вот здесь 3 интересных факта из жизни Ивана Петровича Pavlova, да? So yeah, if you have heard the phrase Pavlov's bell, then you have been referring to this wonderful Nobel Prize winning Russian scientist, Ivan Petrovich Pavlov. Okay, so he specialized in kind of the thing he won the Nobel Prize for was actually like digestion related. And I believe he's considered to be a physiologist, like how the human body works. So if you don't know what Pavlov's bell is, essentially what it was is they would notice that dogs salivate. So they did all sorts of interesting things to detect this. Now it would be considered animal cruelty. But look, he has these tubes kind of inserted. He's trying to get a feel for stomach acids as well as salivation that happens to a dog before they're about to eat. So what they would do is they would ring a bell, and they started to notice that not only like dogs don't salivate just when you put the food in front of them. They salivate when you ring a bell that symbolizes that they're about to get fed. So even they start salivating, even they haven't even seen the food yet, they'll start salivating even when they just hear the bell. Right? So this is super, it's called classical conditioning, as you can see there. And this is relevant everywhere. You know, all this talk nowadays that's very hip about PTSD and triggers and blah, blah, blah. That's all essential classical conditioning. You see a picture of a certain thing, it evokes a certain emotion in your body, and you have a body response that's involuntary because of this conditioning. If something happens over and over again, you are going to associate these two things. So this started with Ivan Pavlov, and you can read more about him. He won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1904. Interestingly, he had an interesting relationship with the Communist Revolution. So you can read up on that. At first he really spoke out against it and was really not happy about it, but he came around in his old age. Anyhow, so very interesting person. Russia, not only, I'm more of a person of the arts, but there's a ton of amazing science and math and that kind of thing that has come out of Russia throughout the years as well. I was also going to do Dmitry Mendeleev, if you know what that is, but I didn't have time, and I'm not a big expert on the scientists as much. So, хорошо, вот. Let's start our imaginations or our imaginary conversations with our friends. Again, disclaimer here. I never expect to ever actually be able to talk to any of these people. 1, because they're dead. And 2, because I don't know how that works after death, and I'm not going to claim to. So anybody who leaves comments saying, well, Peter the Great spoke an ancient version of Russian, you wouldn't be able to communicate with him. Well, I also wouldn't be able to communicate with him because he's dead, and I'm not. Also, just because I have Stalin on here does not mean I condone his behaviors. Again, is common sense gone? Do people have common sense anymore? Or does it disappear when we're looking at a screen? Anyway, just saying. Вот. Okay, то у нас есть Юрий Алексеевич Gagarin. And we want to ask him, Yuri Alexeyevich, what isn't there in space, right? There's probably a lot of stuff that is not there. So, чего нет в космосе, Yuri Alexeyevich? And he says, see if you can understand this. Нет гравитации, нет воздуха и нет звука. And then there's also a famous plakat, a famous poster of him saying, Бога нет, as a true Soviet, right? So that's what I'm referencing here. So he's saying, нет гравитации, no gravity, нет воздуха, no air, right? И нет звука, no sound. Вот. And then my follow-up question is, кого вы видели в космосе? Бога? Вы видели Бога? Did you see God? And he says, нет, никого не видел Бога. Я советский человек, не верю в Бога. Right? So that was a big part of being a good Soviet, was not believing in God, being an atheist. So, он не видел Бога. Да, вот. Okay, следующий вопрос. Now this one's gonna get uncomfortable, people, especially a lot of the Russians are not gonna like this one, okay? But you can do your own research. This is all based on certain things that exist. You can do your own research to find out if this is true or not. Вот. Петр Ильич, вы любите свою жену? So Peter Tchaikovsky, famous compositor. And notice I'm saying свою жену because she's a feminine singular, so she gets real good old school accusative. Okay? Петр Ильич, вы любите свою жену? And then he says, нет, у нас нет любви, нет секса и нет брака. Я гей. The Russians are going to get so mad. But that was kind of the story. You can read up on it if you want. It was kind of a known thing, and he even openly wrote about it too in his letters to people. So now my follow-up question is, правда? Значит, у вас не было жены? So remember, you didn't have a wife. У вас не было. Remember, the thing you don't have gets genitive case. У вас не было жены. And then he says, у меня была жена. Но мы жили вместе только 3 недели. So I had a wife, but we lived together only 3 weeks. For only 3 weeks. А потом они жили отдельно. Да? Okay, my follow-up question is, у вашей жены был другой муж? Да? У вашей жены был другой муж? So did your wife have a different husband? And he says, нет, у нее был любовник. У нее был любовник. Вот. And he seemingly was okay with that because he was not interested in women, so it didn't really affect him. But yes, it's a whole scandal. You can read up on it if you want. Вот. Следующий вопрос. I love Peter the Great in my imagination. He has ADHD in my imaginary version of Peter the Great, but he's also very because he's so smart and so has so much energy, he's very easily irritated with people who aren't up to his level. So you'll see in my imagination, he's super fun and lively, but he's also duh, oh gosh, you're so annoying, you're so slow, you're so whatever. Okay. And Peter the Great can be whatever you want him to be in your imagination. That's the great thing about imaginary friends. Okay, so we say to Peter the Great, we say, Ваше Величество, Your Highness, где находится ваш город Санкт-Петербург? Да, Ваше Величество, где находится ваш город Санкт-Петербург? And he says, он находится на севере от Москвы, да, на севере от Москвы, на берегу Балтийского моря, on the shore of the Baltic Sea. У сильной нации должно быть море. Да, и он так и верил. У сильной у сильного государства, у сильной нации должно быть море. Он очень любил море. And then I'm just gonna pretend like I don't even know anything about St. Petersburg, and I'm gonna say, Балтийское море, значит, ваш город в Скандинавии, да? Oh, he's gonna get so annoyed with this. Get ready. Да нет, какой ты тупой. I love my imaginary friends. Да нет, какой ты тупой. Мой город недалеко от Финляндии и Швеции. Да? Technically, it was in Finland at the time when he завоевал. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what that's called. He conquered it and like kind of claimed it for himself. Вот. So he do not mess with Peter the Great. He gets very annoyed with people not knowing about his great city. Вот. Дальше. Следующий человек. I ask, Владимир Ильич Ленин, кого вы уважаете? Okay, so this was in one of the questions, like answering questions for your oral exam at the end of the test, is not only кого вы любите, но кого вы уважаете. Who do you respect? Who do you respect? Да, кого вы уважаете? And just take a wild guess what you think Lenin's going to say. Я уважаю Карла Маркса, Ричарда Энгельса и нашу коммунистическую партию. Okay, so let's pick this apart. Karl Marx, masculine animate, therefore he looks genitive. Okay, Richard Engels, masculine animate, looks like a genitive. Now, коммунистическая партия is feminine singular, so it goes back to actual accusative. Вот такие дела. Okay, now, again, the following information is based on facts. А Иосифа Сталина уважаете? Иосифа Сталина уважаете? Сначала я видел в Сталине способного организатора чудесного грузина. Кстати, I copied and pasted this. I switched out the я with он, but this is like straight from Google. Сначала Ленин видел в Сталине способного организатора чудесного грузина. Сначала он уважал Сталина. А потом, so like, again, this is copied and pasted, that's why it's higher language. Я хотел сместить его с поста генерального секретаря из-за риска раскола партии. Okay, so do you remember when we just did all of the like of practice yesterday? Of, and you gotta decipher, you know, what's getting genitive case and why. Look at this one. Я хотел сместить его. I wanted to like replace him or kind of get him out of the post of, so генерального секретаря, general secretary, which is essentially the Soviet version of being president. Из-за риска, more genitive case, из-за, if we have is, we're going to get genitive case. Из-за риска, the risk of раскол, which is a schism, but it's getting genitive case here, or like a split, right? It's getting genitive case because the risk of a split of the party. See? So I wasn't lying to you yesterday when I told you you got to get really good at knowing where the of is and knowing what needs apostrophe s, what needs genitive case, etc. Да? То есть с поста генерального секретаря из-за риска раскола партии. Вот так. And that's true, by the way. He said, do not let that man become president. He did not trust Stalin in the end. Вот такие дела. Okay, again, people get so offended that I have like Stalin on here. Again, imaginary conversations, people. Like, this is not based in fact. However, I highly recommend reading this biography. Fabulous. It's super good. And it's like, you know, as is the case with all leaders, they had their strong moments. They had their good qualities too. And I love any biography that makes you walk away being like, I don't know. Is he a hero or a villain? I really don't know. Like, that's a good biography, you know? Okay, so when I'm having this imaginary conversation with Stalin, I'm super brave and I totally dare to confront him and I say, Stalin, кого вы убили? Who have you killed? Who did you kill? Now he's like, whoa, with your accusations there, Janey. Ой, я не убивал никого лично. Жена убила себя. Моего сына убили немцы. Да, то есть немцы убили моего сына. Но я не был против. Okay, so let's translate that. Я не убивал никого лично. I didn't kill anybody personally, right? Жена, вторая жена, убила себя. His second wife killed herself. And немцы убили моего сына Якова. Да? То есть the Germans killed his son Yakov. And he says, no, я не был против, but I wasn't against it. Now, I've gone my whole life until I read this biography thinking it was like a cruel move on his part. But this biography kind of talks about how he had to, because if the Germans see that, like, oh, if we kidnap the sons of any important leader, we can use them as leverage. We can use them as, and he felt like in a time of war, I should not get special treatment. Everybody is suffering equally. Anyway, I thought that was super interesting. That was like definitely not what I have come to expect of Stalin. Wartime Stalin was a whole different thing. You got to read this book. It's seriously like, wow. Okay, вот. Now I go, ну, вы кого-нибудь любили? Вы кого-нибудь любили? But so did you love anybody? And then this is all based in fact. Да, я очень любил мою первую жену и люблю детей. И люблю детей. Это, кстати, правда. Он очень любил мою первую жену, но она умерла. Да, она умерла. И он очень любил детей. Right? So he was like famously good with children. Kids loved Stalin. And he just was so delighted by them and just such, everybody even called him like dядя. Like they called him uncle. All the little kids have such happy memories of Stalin, which is so interesting, right? You wouldn't know that based on what we learn about Stalin in the mainstream media. Да. Сколько у вас детей? Сколько у вас детей? So now we're asking about his kids. У меня 2 сына и 1 дочь. So 2 sons, 1 daughter. И он говорит, любил дочь больше всех. And that's true. He loved his daughter the most. He was very protective of her. And anyway, so вот такие дела. Seriously, read this biography. It's so interesting. It is just so fascinating. I love reading biographies of leaders. So, хорошо. Leave in the comments below what you would say to your imaginary friends. And again, the sky's the limit. There's no wrong questions here. There's no wrong imaginary friends because they're imaginary. So I'm not going to judge you for who you choose to be your imaginary friend because it's just your imaginary friend. We're all crazy here. We're all mad here, as they say in Alice in Wonderland. Хорошо, это все на сегодня. Увидимся на следующем уроке. Пока-пока.